Okay, so today we will be discussing different tools and techniques of data collection, and along with the tools, we will be knowing the different types of data and how to design the questionnaire. So, okay. So as we know, many times we call that data, we call that it is the collection of information. Sometimes we call data as the collection of information, but here we say that data is something collection of raw things, some numeral, some qualitative characteristics like that. And statistics is a tool which converts the data into information. So statistics is a very important thing that actually converts the data into information, and that is used for the estimation and testing about this and so many other things by doing statistical analysis. So once we collected the data, now the question arises. There are so many questions how to collect it and how will we collect it, what are the tools to collect it. So now the question is where does data come from, what is the source of the data, how is it gathered, what is the method of collecting the data, then that is which sampling technique has been used. Now how do we ensure its accuracy? What is the accuracy of the data? What is the reliability of the data? Whether it is well representative of the population or not. So these things we will be knowing in further discussion. Some of the topics assigned things with the topic. So before knowing different tools for collecting the data, we should know the types of data. So as we know that there are two types of data, primary and secondary data. So primary data is the data which is collected first hand. Sometimes we call it as first hand data, which has not been used earlier for any purposes. So primary data collected by the investigator himself or herself for a specific purpose is known as primary data. For example, data collected by a student for her thesis or research project is the primary data. And secondary data, we know the data which has been collected, which has been used earlier for some purpose, and we are using it for the same purpose or for some other purpose. Then such type of data is known as secondary data. So data collected by someone else for some other purpose, but being utilized by the investigator for another purpose, or many times for the extension of the same we use for the same purpose. So, for example, census data being used to analyze the impact of education on career choice and earning and many other purposes. So, this is the secondary data. Now, each primary and secondary data is further of two types. It may be of qualitative nature, it may be of quantitative nature. So, if the data is presented in the form of numerals, in the form of numbers, then such type of data is known as quantitative data. And sometimes we come across the problems where we do not, we are not able to express the data in numbers. So, for example, honesty. So such type of some characteristics or attributes are there for the analysis, then it is very hard to represent them into the numbers. But for the analysis, we convert them into the numbers, into the categories, and it is done on the Likert scale. So Likert tried to convert the qualitative data into quantitative and for the statistical analysis. So there we use the categorical data, and it may be nominal, maybe ordinal. We'll be discussing later as the scale of measurement. So now we have discussed two types of data, primary, secondary, and both may be of further two types, quantitative as well as qualitative. Now there are some measures to measure the qualitative and quantitative data. So there are two measures for each one. Quantitative data, there are two measures, ratio and interval, and qualitative data, there are two measures of scale of measurement, and nominal and ordinal. So one by one we'll be discussing. So to measure the qualitative data or attribute or characteristic, we have two scales of measurement, nominal and ordinal. And such data is known as categorical data because we express the attributes in different categories. Now, if all categories we give no preference, no order, no rank to the different categories of the data of the characteristic under study, then such type of data is known as such scale of measurement of the qualitative data is known as nominal scale. For example, if we are not giving any preference to the gender, male, female, or say color, then this is on nominal scale. And if there is order there in the categories of the characteristic under investigation, or there is ranks for the categories of the data in hand. So such type of qualitative data is measured on the scale known as ordinal scale. For example, suppose in banking sector, there are 3-4 types of jobs: managerial, clerical, custodial. So this way we know there is ranking there on the basis of their work, on the basis of their skills, and the basis of their salary. So this way there is ranking or order is applied there. That is why it is known as ordinal data. Now, if the data is quantitative, there are two measures of measuring this quantitative data: ratio scale and interval scale. So whenever we are expressing the data in numbers, and if 0 is having its absolute meaning, then this scale is, the quantitative data is measured on the ratio scale. If 0 is having its absolute meaning, 0 is meaningful, 0 means 0. So that is why if height, weight, numbers, and some other things counts, if we are measuring these, say height, weight, then 0 height means no height, 0 weight means no weight, 0 numbers means no numbers. So if 0 is having its absolute meaning, the quantitative data is measured on the ratio scale. But if 0 is not having its absolute meaning, then we measure the quantitative data on interval scale. For example, the temperature. So the 0 temperature doesn't mean there is no temperature. And another example may be IQ. If IQ is 0, it means the person is not having brain. Maybe he or she have not given the answer of the questions, but the person is having brain. So this way where if 0 is not having its absolute meaning, then we apply the interval scale, otherwise we apply ratio scale for measuring the quantitative data. Now we discuss different methods of data collection or different tools of data collection. So there are many methods used to collect or obtain data for statistical analysis. 3 of the most popular methods are here. We will be discussing 3 methods, very important methods, which are being used while collecting the data. The number 1 is direct observation. So direct observation, also known as observational study, is a method of collecting, evaluating information in which the evaluator watches the subject in his or her usual environment without altering that environment. We do not alter the environment of the unit. For example, in psychology, the psychiatrists do not disturb the unit. it only watches it, or say some unwanted activities is going on. So the intelligence agencies do not disturb the environment. It only watches and collect the information. So this is direct observation. And these are the examples of direct observation. So direct observation is used when other data collection procedure such as survey, questionnaire, etc. are not effective, because the usual environment will be disturbed, so we will not be able to collect the information. Maybe maybe in most of the sensitive cases, such type of data collection technique is used. So when the goal is to evaluate an ongoing behavior process, event or situation, or when there are physical outcomes that can be readily seen, so there we apply this direct observation method. Next, we know the experiment. So these are more effective in establishing cause and effect relationship. In an experiment, data collection is done in such a manner as to permit relatively more unambiguous interpretation, because scientifically we prove in most of the experiments are very scientific. So there we try to get the cause and effect relationship so that we may be able to interpret the things more clearly, not more ambiguous. In the fields of sciences, experiments determine and prove cause and effect relationship. These are also being used in marketing research efforts and so many other fields as well. Now, the third very important, which is being used by almost all persons, that is surveys. So a survey collect information from people, that is Gallup polls. It was used for the opinion for the political point of view in USA, and pre-election polls, marketing surveys, etc. So there we apply this surveys. The response rate, that is the proportion of all people selected who completed the survey, is a key parameter. So what is the ratio of response and what is the ratio of or percentage of non-response? It is very important for the surveys. So surveys may be administered in a variety of ways. There are so many ways, so many ways to get the information in surveys. There are so many methods, further methods for the surveys to collect the information. Maybe personal interview, maybe telephonic interview, maybe self-administered questionnaires, maybe emailed questionnaire, maybe schedule. So there are so many ways, so many methods to collect the information in surveys. Now the interview method. This method of collecting data involve presentation or oral verbal stimuli and reply in terms of oral verbal responses. Maybe oral, maybe verbal responses we can record in interview. Interview method. This is oral verbal communication where interviewer asks questions which are aimed to get information required for the study. So definitely we only ask the questions related to our study to respondent. And there are different type of interviews for as follows. So these interview methods are of various types. Personal interview. The interviewer asks questions generally in a face-to-face contact to the other person or persons, and then this is known as personal interview. So these are basically two types of personal interview. Personal interview and say structured and unstructured personal interview. So there it must be read as structured and this must be unstructured in personal interview. So what is structured and what is unstructured? It means in structured interview we will be asking questions only which are pre-scheduled. And in unstructured questions, we can randomly ask the questions to the interview, to the respondent. So here there is a comparison between structured and non-structured, unstructured. So here we ask the predetermined questions, standardized technique of recording. Interviewer follows rigid procedure laid down, that is asking questions in the form and order prescribed, which has been prescribed earlier. But in unstructured, flexibility in asking questions, we can ask any question. So no predetermined questions are there in the schedule. No standardized techniques of recording are used. Interviewer has freedom to ask, omit, add questions in any manner. And here in structured, time required for such interview is less than non-structured interview. Ask questions without following sequence, not necessary of skill or specific knowledge. Here, deep knowledge and skill required, because you are going to ask some questions randomly. So you must have knowledge about the object under consideration, so that you may be able to ask the question to the respondent. So analysis of data becomes easier because information is collected in prescribed manner. But here analysis of data is difficult because we have just asked the questions in an unstructured form. Now, what are the merits of personal interview? So information get the depth. If you are going to the personal for the personal interview, so you can have some depth information. Now, flexibility of restructuring the questionnaire, because you are just asking the question face to face, so you can restructure your questions. So you can restructure your questionnaire. Interviewer by his skill can come over resistance. So it is the skill of the interviewer to come over the resistance. So non-response generally low. Non-response rate is low because you are just asking the question face to face. So you must be able to get the answer of the questions. So you should be skilled to come over the resistance of the respondent. Now samples can be controlled more effectively. It means the required sample size may be attained very easily if you are using the personal technique. Now, personal information can be obtained. Definitely, you can ask some personal questions as well if you are face to face getting the information. Now, interviewer can collect supplementary information as well. So you can also get some more questions which are not there in the structured questionnaire. So interviewer can collect supplementary information about respondent personal characteristic and environment which has value in interpreting results. If you think that your supplementary information is going to support your analysis, or it will be useful for interpreting the results of your study, then you can also get that information from the interviewer, from the respondent. Now, definitely there are some demerits of personal interview as well. That is, it is expensive first. Expensive method. Respondent may give bias information. Definitely, you are maybe response bias. So the response bias is there in the personal interview data. Some executive people are not approachable, so data collection may be inadequate. Every time you are going there and you are not able to get that person which is part of your sample, and takes more time when samples are more. If if you require some large sample, then it will take much more time, because this non-response and other things will also be there while collecting the information. And systematic error may be occurred. Definitely, you are using the data by your own personal, so systematic error has very much chance to be incurred into the data. Supervisors have to do complex work of selecting, training, and supervising the field staff. Definitely, interviewer must be a skilled person, trained and smart person, so that the problem of non-response should be there, and the response bias should not be there. Non-response should be minimum. So we should give training to the interviewers so that these problems may be overcome. Now the next one, which is economic in comparison to personal interview, is the telephonic interview. Now contacting sample on telephone, uncommon method may be used in developed regions. This method may be used for the undeveloped regions, or some it may be used for the developed regions where you think that the person will respond on the telephone. So there only you can apply this method there. So there are some merits and demerits of telephonic interview as well. Many times demerit is that many times people do not pick the phone. And what are the merit? That it is very economic, flexible compared to mailing method, faster than other methods, cheaper than personal interview method. Callbacks are simple and economical also, and high response than mailing method. In mailing method, many times people do not respond on email or mail. So when it is not possible to contact the respondent directly, so suppose the person is not approachable, you tried sometimes and you do not, you didn't get. So in such situation, we'll try through telephone. So then interview is conducted through telephone. Replies can be recorded without embarrassment to respondents, definitely. And interviewer can explain requirements more easily. No field staff is required, because you can by your own you can get that information. You just call through phone. So no trained interviewers are required, no staff is required. So in that sense, it is also economic. So wider distribution of sample is possible. So this way we can get a large sample. What are the demerits for this telephonic interview? That little time is given to respondents, because people do not want to have a long discussion on the phone. Survey is restricted to respondents who have telephones. Definitely, if the person is not having telephone, then we will not be including that person into the sample. So not suitable for intensive survey where comprehensive answers are required, because we have a limited time. So bias information may be more. People may, you are not, face to face there, so people may give you wrong information. So bias will be in a higher rate in comparison to personal interview. So very difficult to make questionnaire, because it should short and to the point. So in that case, if you are making the questionnaire for the telephonic interview, it is very hard to make the questionnaire, because you have to finish it in very short duration of the time, and it is very hard to get the answer of all questions in a very short period of time. So that is demerit of the telephone. Now we come to the structured interviews. In this case, a set of predetermined questions are formed, and these questions are asked to the respondents. Unstructured interviews, in this case, we do not follow a system of predetermined questions. We can ask randomly any question related to the field to the respondents. And focused interview, attention is focused on the given experience of the respondent and its possible effects. So focus interview, it means we will be targeting the that unit which is I mean more important for our analysis. And clinical interview, as we know, concerned with broad underlying feelings or motivations or with the course of individual's life experience rather than with the effect of the specific experience, as in this case of focused interview. So in clinical trials, so the deep interview is taken such as for the case studies, we get the information in different clinical interviews. Now group interview, in this group interview, we get the information from a group of individuals. And qualitative and quantitative interviews divided on the basis of subject matters, that is whether quantitative or qualitative. So maybe mixture type questions may be there. If quantitative and qualitative all type of questions are required, then we make both type of questions to get the information. An individual interview, as we know, if we are interested in any particular person, then for a single person, the information is gathered through personal interview or say individual interview. So interviewer meets a single person and interviews. Selection interviews done on the selection of the people for certain jobs. So you have just selected the particular persons and then you have collected the information from the selected person. So it comes into the category of selection interview. Now it is little bit important, the depth interview in psychology and some other things here, scientific say analysis, scientific study. It deliberately aims to elicit unconscious as well as other types of material relating especially to personality dynamics and motivations. So there for the in psychology it is very much useful or very much used types of data collection method. Depth interview. Now the questionnaire method, which is very important and very much used for the data collection. So this method of data collection is quite popular, particularly in case of big inquiries. The questionnaire is mailed to respondent. Now this questionnaire, I mean, we can get the information through the questionnaire by through email or through personal interview or through telephonic interview. We can get through by this questionnaire. So the questionnaire is mailed to respondents who are expected to read and understand the questions and write down the reply in the space meant for the purpose in the questionnaire itself. We have given a question and then a space for the answer, the question and a space for the answer. So we expect that the respondents will write the answer in the given space. The respondents have to answer the questions on their own. Questionnaire method. Questionnaire is sent to persons with request to answer the questions and return the questionnaire. Questions are printed in definite order, mailed to samples to the sampled persons which are collected, which are gathered into or which are identified as the unit of the sample. So it is sent to the persons who are expected to read and questions, understand the questions and write the answers to provide on the provided space. Now, what are the merits of the questionnaire and the merit and demerits as well? So merits of the questionnaire, it is of low cost. Even the geographical area is large to cover and answer are in the respondent's words, so free from bias, because the answers are in terms of the respondent's words. So adequate time to think for answer. It is emailed or mailed, so the respondents have sufficient time to answer the questions. Non-approachable respondents may be conveniently contacted. Large samples can be used so results are more reliable. As we know that if we are increasing the sample size, then we will be getting more and more precise and more accurate and efficient result. But the restriction is that the survey cost will be increased. Now the demerits of the questionnaire are that demerits of questionnaire that low rate of return of duly filled questionnaires because people do not want to respond the questionnaire, and the non-response rate is very high. Can be used when respondent is educated and cooperative. Definitely if the person is not educated, so it cannot write the answers. It is inflexible. Omission of some questions, difficult to know the expected respondent have filled the form. Very hard to know. I mean whether expected persons have the required persons have filled up the form or not. It is filled by someone, the same person or someone else. Slowest method of data collection, because we get the information in a very slow rate, very low rate are there for the question. So this is the topic of the questionnaire. Now the main aspects of the questionnaire are that so there are certain things to be taken care of while forming the questionnaire. We will be discussing later what aspects should be taken care of while framing the questions of the questionnaire. The main aspect of the questionnaire, are that general form structure. It must be of the general form. Questionnaire alternatives or the questions must be not must be maybe or we should put them we should prefer to put them in a dichotomous form. It means yes, no, or present and absent. It means the category having only two categories, yes, no, present, absent, these types. Dichotomous type questions should be there in the question. So yes, no type questions are asked. Easy to interpret the data, but unuseful for the survey, which is aimed to probe for attitudes. So definitely, if we are using it for some, say, attribute or characteristics, so it will not be very useful for that. And regions for certain action, unstructured questionnaire, open-ended questions. So open-ended questions must be asked very cautiously. Leading questions should not be asked there, because biased will be involved there in the data. Respondent give answer in his own words. On the basis of the pre-test, researcher can decide about which type of questionnaire or question should be asked. It means that is why while framing the questionnaire, first we do a pilot survey. That is, we apply this questionnaire on a small population, small sample, so that we may be able to know what difficulty the participant is facing or respondents are facing, whether they are understanding the questions well, whether questions are easily readable, or and what difficulties are on the part of the respondents. So we remove them and we make them easy. So it must be very clearly worded questionnaire, easily asked questions, easily understandable questions, and the questions must be of dichotomous type. So question on the basis of the pre-test, researcher can decide about which type of questionnaire should be used, Question sequence, what should be the question sequence? Question sequence should be clear and smoothly moving. The term easy to tough. Relation to the one question to another should be readily apparent. First question important for creating interest in respondent mind. So that is why we say that some demographic questions should be asked first to make the respondent that may be able to get the answer on all the of all the questions in the question. Question which give stress on memory or of the personal character and wealth should be avoided in the questionnaire as opening questions. Later on, these questions must be asked. So easy or easier questions should be at the start of the questionnaire. General to specific questions should be in the sequence. Sequence of questions, question formulation and wording should be very clear. Questions should be questions may be of easily understandable. And questions should be simple and concrete. Definitely, the question should be solid and each question should be understandable. Closed questions are easily to handle, but this is like fixing the answer in people's mouth. So closed or open-ended type questions must be cautiously asked. So depending upon problem for which survey is going on, both closed-ended and open-ended questions may be asked in the questionnaire. Words having ambiguous meaning should be avoided. That is why we have said that it must be clearly worded questionnaire or question. Catch words with emotional connotations, danger words should be avoided. Such type of controversial questions or words should not be used in the question. Now, what are the essentials of good questionnaire? Essentials of good questionnaire should be short and simple. That is, the questionnaire should be short and simple. Questions should arrange in logical sequence from easy to difficult one. Technical terms should be avoided. Some control questions which indicate reliability of the respondent. To know consumption first, expenditure, and then weight or quantity of the material. So questions affecting the sentiments of the respondent should be avoided. Adequate space for the answer should be given so that the respondent may be comfortable to answer the questions. Provision for uncertainty. Do not know, no preference. So this type of questions should be avoided. Answer options. Directions regarding the filling of questionnaire should be given physically in physical appearance, and quality of the paper or color should be very good so that the person may be able to give the answer to all the questions. How to construct a questionnaire? This is very important. This is very important. Some aspect must be given special care while framing the questions of the questionnaire. So researchers should note the following with regard to these three main aspects of the questionnaire, that it must be of the general form, question sequence, and determine the type of the questions. Maximum the questions may be of the dichotomous types. Direct question, indirect question, open-ended questions, closed-ended questions, closed form questions, dichotomous questions, and multiple choice questions. So this must be taken care of. So these are some aspects which should be given preference or should be taken care of while framing the questionnaire. Over the years, a lot of thoughts have been put into the science of the design of survey questions. The key design principles are as follows. The first one is that keep the questionnaire as short as possible, because people are not having so much time to read the long questions and all the very long questionnaire and then fill them. So we must make the questionnaire as short as possible. Ask short, simple, and clearly worded questions. Every question must be short, must be simple and clearly worded, so that it must be understandable to the respondent. Start with the demographic questions to help respondent get started comfortable. So we should, ask that what is your name, what is your father's name, what is your native place, so that the person will be, and try to call him or her by its name, so that the respondent will be comfortable to give the answer of the questions. Use dichotomous yes no type or multiple choice questions. Use open-ended questions cautiously, otherwise you will get the very far from the reality answers. And avoid using leading questions, because leading questions are asked by the by the interviewer, so the interviewer bias will be included into the data if the leading questions will be asked there. Pre-test a questionnaire on a small number of people, and that is known as pilot survey, and we will be able to know which question is going to be hard and which is ambiguous. So we will change it to get the answer on almost all the questions from the respondents. Think about the way you intend to use the collected data when or while preparing the questionnaire. Definitely your objective must be in front of you while making the questionnaire. Now the schedule. There is a slight difference between the schedule and the questionnaire. So what is schedule? It is one of the important methods for the study of social problems. Schedule like questionnaires, but it is filled up by the enumerator. See, questionnaire we give it to the respondent, while in schedule the answers are filled up by the interviewer itself. So enumerators are specially appointed for filling questionnaire. So census is done through schedules. Appointed by the filling questionnaire, enumerators explain the aim and objective to the respondent and fill the answers in provided space by him or herself. In the words of Thomas Carson, my core, that the schedule is nothing more than a list of questions which it seems necessary to test the hypothesis, and it is filled by the interviewer itself. Now, here we compare the questionnaire with the schedule. That questionnaire generally sent through mail or no further assistance from sender, and schedule is filled by the enumerator or researcher or research worker. So there is, very less non-response in the schedule. So questionnaire is cheaper method, and it is obviously costly method, because we go door to door to get the unit under consideration, and non-response is high, and here non-response is low. In questionnaire, it is not confirmed that expected respondent have filled the answer, because we do not know whether the correct person has filled up or not the form. But in schedule, we go to the correct person and we self fill the form. So in schedule, identity of person is known. Questionnaire is very slow method, and here information is collected well in time. And no personal contact is done in questionnaire, while direct personal contact is done in schedule. Questionnaire can be used only when respondent is educated and cooperative, while schedule may be used for the literate and illiterate both persons. That is why the schedule is used in census. Wider distribution of sample is possible because we send the form, say double, triple times the required sample, and difficulty for wider area because we go door to get the information and it is very costly. So incomplete and wrong information is more. Here, the relatively more correct and complete answers are given by the respondent. And questionnaire depends on quality of questionnaire. Here the questions are, the answers depends on the quality of the questionnaire, and it depends on the honesty and competency of the enumerator, how the person is asking the question to the respondent. Physical appearance of the questionnaire should be attractive. The color paper should be of good quality, color should be attractive, and the questions should be in a good font, this way. And it is not necessary in schedule method because it is not given to the respondent. We only ask the questions to the respondents. And observation method cannot be used here. But it is possible to use observation at the time of filling schedule by enumerator, because we are asking the questions which are being scheduled in the questionnaire or schedule, and but we are, since we are collecting the information face to face, so we can get some observational data as well. There are some more methods for the data collection, say warranty cards, postcard size cards sent to the customers, and feedback collected through asking questions on these cards. Now, distributor or store audits may be of source of information. So audits are done by distributor or manufacturers, salesperson. Observation or copying information about inventory in retail shops. Useful method for knowing market shares, market size, effect of the store promotion. So such type of information may be collected from the store audits. Now, pantry audits. From the observation of pantry of customers to know purchase habit of the people, which product of what brand, etc. Are preferred by the persons. So questions may be asked at the time of audit. And the consumer panels, when pantry audit is done at regular basis, daily record of the consumption of certain customers are repeatedly interviewed at the specific period to know their consumption. So we can repeatedly interview, get the information, or on some interval we can get the information through pantry audit. Now, transitory consumer panels, for limited time continuing customer panel, for indefinite period we can use this transitory consumer panels. These methods are very less used for some specific purpose, but the very much used method is the questionnaire or schedule. So use of mechanical device. Now we can use some mechanical device to get the information. Eye cameras to record eye focus on certain sketch. Psycho galvanometer to measure body excitement at to visual stimulus. Motion picture camera to record movement of body at the time of purchase. And audio meter concerned to TV, useful to know channel program preferences of the people, the choices of the people, liking of the people. So we can use these electronic devices or mechanical devices. Depth interview, we know, to discover the underlying motives of or desire of samples, to explore needs, feelings of respondents. Skill is required. Indirect questions, some for the depth interview, you will have to ask some indirect question to get the information. Our projective techniques are used to know behavior of the respondent. Many times some sensitive issues are there, so many techniques are used to get the information on sensitive issues. Some randomized response techniques are used there to get the information on some sensitive issues. Now, content analysis, analyzing content of documentary material as newspaper, books, magazines about certain characteristics to identify and count. So, on content analysis is very much useful for the library person work and some mass communication people and some other or any person working in a specific field. If you are doing the content analysis, then you will be able to know which trend is applied there in the study. Now, case study is very much important and very much popular among management people, commerce people, and some other people as well, education and some other areas. So it is essentially an intensive investigation of the particular unit under consideration for the case study. So its important characteristics are as follows: that the researcher can take one single social unit or more of such units, maybe group of unit, for the study purpose. The selected unit is studied intensively, that is, it is studied in minute details. So we go we get the information for almost all aspects which are useful for the study under consideration. Now, survey method, we know one of the common methods of diagnosing and solving of social problems is that of undertaking surveys. We know, and we have studied earlier, we have discussed earlier the different types of surveys. So Festinger and Cart of the opinion, they were of the opinion that many research problems require systematic collection of the data from population through the use of personal interviews or other data gathering devices. Definitely, if we are getting the information, that is, we are collecting the information from the population, and one thing is that the sample should be well representative of the population, then we will be capable to estimate the parameters under consideration very closely to the reality. Panel method may be used for the data collection. In this method, data is collected from the same sample respondent at some interval, either by email or by personal interview. This is used for studies. We know that in time series we know that there are three types of data. One is cross-sectional data, time series data, and the mixture of the two is known as panel data. That is why we here panel method, we have collected the information at equal interval. So time series data is nothing but the data collected at equal in chronological form at equal time interval. So we have data on different time points. Data on a single variable at different time points is known as time series data. And if we are getting the data on different variables at a single time point, this is known as cross-sectional data, which is very much used in medical studies. And if we are dealing with the many variables at many time points, then this is known as panel data. So there we can apply this panel. So this is used to study the expenditure pattern, consumer behavior, effectiveness of the advertising, and voting behavior, and so on. So many methods, so many purposes may be analyzed through this panel data. Now this is a flow chart for the primary research method and techniques. So see here, this is a quantitative data, and we can go for the survey, and in survey we can go for the personal interview, telephonic interview, mail, in-house, self-administered questions, that is maybe questionnaire, schedule, telephonic, fax, email, web, and the second experiment, mechanical observations we can use, and simulation. Simulation is a method which is collected on here we generate the artificial data. So if we are dealing with the population having very, I mean, say rare population, then there we calculate some parameters and we know the particular distribution, and through that we generate the population, which is this method is known as simulation. And here now we come to qualitative data, so we can go for the focus groups, individual depth interview, human observations, and case study, which are very important and very useful for different subjects. Now this is a flow chart again for the primary data collection. You can see here, this is for the secondary data actually. So you can see here data sources primary, and now come to secondary, and secondary sources may be internal records, and in internal record may be sales and patronage results, marketing activities, cost information, distributor reports and feedback, audit reports, customer feedback. And here now come to the external sources, maybe internet, maybe standardized source of marketing, maybe published data, maybe electronic, maybe printed. So maybe published data may be through government and trade associations, periodicals, newspaper, books, annual reports, private studies, journals, and so many newspaper, so many things, maybe magazines, so many sources of information. And here you can see here is standardized sources of marketing, maybe store audits, warehouse withdrawal services, consumer purchase panels, single source data, Nielsen's television index, Stars store, and so many sources are for the standardized source of marketing. So this way we can collect the secondary data. Now this is for the primary data. Here see methods of data collection. You can secondary we have discussed these documents and maybe publication, this, and now we focus on the primary source of information, maybe through observation, interview, and questionnaire, as we have discussed. And in observation we can participant and non-participant, on both we can get the information. And through interview the interview may be structured and unstructured, and questionnaire may be mailed questionnaire and collective questionnaire, and it may be also scheduled. Now secondary data, we know sources of secondary data, as we have discussed: publication of central, state, local government, technical and trade journals, books, magazines, newspaper, reports, publications of industry, bank, stock exchange, reports by research scholars, universities, theses and publications, and public records may be the secondary data. So factors to be considered before using secondary data. These are some factors which must be taken care of. That reliability of the data should be there, validity of the data should be there, adequacy of the data should be there while using the secondary data. Who, when, which method was applied, at what time it was collected the data. So it is very important to aspect for the to know the reliability of the data. Suitability of the data, object, scope, and nature of the original inquiry should be studied, as if the study was with different objective, then that data is not suitable for the current study if the data objective was different. And the third one, very important aspect while considering the secondary data, is the adequacy of the data. Level of accuracy, area differences, then data is not adequate for a study, because it must be matching with the study. Now selection of proper method for collecting data. A collection of data should be there. It should include nature, scope, and objective of the inquiry, availability of the fund, time factor, and precision required. Precision is very important, time factor is very important, and fund is very important, and definitely scope and objective of the inquiry is very important. So these are very important aspects for the selection of method used for the data collection. So these are some references. Thank you.